announcement here. And I'm going to tell you about this tool that we really would want everybody to use to the maximum. It's called SPIN, Sponsored Program Information Network. It started off as way back when. And it's a curated subscription funding opportunity database. So Research and Sponsored Programs pays a fee each year to provide unlimited access to students, faculty, and staff to use this. And it's really in everybody's interest if we promote it, if we just show people what a tool it is and how to use it. So just to take a quick look, this is what it looks like before you sign in. You don't see much. Search, preferences, save searches. After you sign in, you have some more menu options here. So in this case, you can see that you've got 3 kinds of searches: text, keyword, advanced. You set up your preferences. You've got saved searches. I've got a whole bunch of just stuff I've saved in there. Every search can be set up as a funding alert, meaning you can pick that search. You could say, I want an email for new matches of that opportunity, and I want them to come daily or weekly. And you can also bookmark your favorite particular funding opportunities. So I hope that looks of interest to you, but I want to tell you first, kind of give you some reasons why, to tell you a little bit more about it. So it's this powerful tool to get automated emails that match your searches if you choose to configure it that way. It's a curated funding database. They have, the company that operates this, InfoEd, has about half a dozen people, a team of people who daily go through all the opportunities and add them and delete them when they expire. So it's pretty well maintained. I've had people ask, why don't I just use Google? Well, oh yeah, Google has it, you can find a lot of things. But this has some advantages in that you can set a very specific search and have all the matches emailed to you. They have about 40 to 45,000 opportunities at any given time, which is a big number, but it's not everything. So I also want to just kind of indicate its strengths and also where the limitations are. So it's very strong on federal funding opportunities. Those are easily announced or easy to find out about. It's good for the medium to large private foundations. It's not the best when it comes to state opportunities. It's not the best when it comes to very small ones. So if you wanted to know what's the universe outside of SPIN, figure they've got 40 to 45,000 or so. But if you go to ask a reference librarian to use the big fat print grant indexes, those have over 100,000 opportunities. So if you're in an area that might be funded by a small amount of money, that might be chasing a disease that doesn't affect a lot of people, and so there's not a lot of federal funding for it, there are certain kinds of research opportunities where you might, in addition to SPIN, want to go to the reference librarians and find out what you're missing out on. But it's quite good to set up and see what comes in. It really doesn't cost much in terms of effort to set up something nice. But the thing I want to stress here is this second tab. So let me just explain before we dive into the fun part, which is how do you do a search, what do you save it. What you want to do before anything else is make sure that you've configured your preferences, and let me tell you why. So you've got location, type, project location, citizenship are some of the options here. So when you go in here, what you're doing is telling SPIN who you are. So you need to be logged into your account to do this, and it's going to save what you tell it about yourself. And the point of this is that all of the searches you create after you set up the preferences will have those filters built in. So when people don't get this, sometimes they set up searches and they say, I get a lot of stuff that really doesn't apply to me. It's not for me for this reason, or it's not where I want to do the thing. That's why you set up the filters. So in this case, I've set it up. You can pick anything on the left. You can use the little arrows to slide it over to the right. And I've said that I happen to be located in the U.S. Click Save and Exit, and it pops me right back out to the main menu bar here. So the most important thing for you to set up are the locations, and I will warn you, they're not perfect. You still get some noise, but this helps quite a bit. Applicant type is very important. You may not be used to thinking of yourself in this context, but you can see that it's divided into individual and then organization. Organization then goes into a little further. For the most part, you will be interested in applying as the University of Toledo, as an organization. For those of you who may be in the arts and humanities, there may be some exceptions in other areas, but individual applicant would be the kinds of opportunities like a Fulbright grant, where the check comes directly to the individual. So it's good to be aware of what you've configured in here and make sure it makes sense for whatever it is you're looking for. So assuming that you've got this, so that, you know, if citizen is an issue that may preclude you from being eligible for certain things, you might want to pick that. So just make sure you got that the way you want. So once you've got that done, let's take a look at what you got with the text search. And once you do have these filters, you'll always get these little warnings that say, hey, your search parameters are, you know, are going to be applied. That's really what they're saying. And I always click continue, and it's always got this warning down here that says you've got additional filters active right there. So anytime you lose sight of what you've set up, you can always click here and you'll see the same things with references. So text searches here I used to think they were kind of, you know, pointless, kind of weak or something. But the fact is, you can go over here to search help and look for the help for text search. And here's this whole reminder that the text search, the simplest search, will still have all these, what do you call those? Boolean operators. So you've got ands and ors. You can use quote marks to make sure that, in this case, they use science research to make sure that exact phrase comes up. You can do a minus, like they have stem dash minus cell, or dash cell, until you'll find all the occasions with stem without cell. So, and you have wildcards, so the asterisk and the question mark. So that lends a lot of power to it. So just to give an example here, if I put in, let's see, I know we've got a lot of people on campus who work in algal bloom areas. If I just type in the word and click locate funding, I get 39, not bad, and you can scroll through here and find some interesting things. But if you know that what you want is more accurately described in a 2 or 3 word phrase, then don't be shy about trying that. So in this case, I'm just going to try algal bloom, and we go from 39. Now it says, well, with that exact phrase, it's 22. Okay, so you know there's a lot of power there with the Boolean operators and the quotes and so forth. So what we've got here is a list of 22 results that match that very simple search. I want to stress here that you're not looking for like a laser gun. You know, don't think of this as being a way to find that exact one thing. I encourage people, cast a net pretty wide and be ready to sit down and do a little research on how to do your research. Be ready to spend a little bit of time learning what's out there. So that may mean doing some pretty wide searches, scrolling through. And when you find something you like, I'm going to pick this one down here, climate change and health. When you click on the second column there, the title itself is a link, and it opens up the link. Always slow when there's people waiting. And I just want to show you what one of the records look like that you'll get on any of these searches. There we go. Okay, so this is what the record looks like. At the top, you do have this bookmark option. If you remember, one of those options across the top when I load the thing is you can maintain your list of your favorite opportunities. So if I click bookmark program, I'll show you later where that goes. You have the opportunity to group these. So in this case, I've already started a group called harmful algal bloom. I'll just check that one, select existing group, click that, save changes. So now when if a week or two I want to go find it, I know exactly where to go find this one. So what you have here, the deadline, it'll tell you about the funding. They'll give you a brief description of the synopsis of the eligibility. And then scrolling down, there's, in this case, it's a recurring deadline. You can add those to your calendar. But something else that I think is worth pointing out is that every one of these records will have the keywords. So I showed you there's a text search, advanced search, a keyword search. Here's where once you find something that looks of interest to you, scroll down and you'll start to learn how they categorize stuff you want. So in this case, there's 4, as you would expect. You can click on any one of these, and it will go ahead and list the ones that have that same tag. So with a little kind of prowling around, a little bit of just messing around, you can start to learn how do they tag the stuff you want, how many things are available, and from what sponsors. Okay, so I want to close that window. Does that make sense to y'all about, text search is one of the 3 ways you could pick to do that. I want to show you the keyword search here. We could, it always lists that warning that says you've got filters and I'm going to load them. Yes, you are. Thank you very much. So the keyword search, they have their own system of tags that you can pick from, and it's multi-tiered. So never fast enough, but I will show you that. So you got a glimpse at the tags for a particular one, and under keyword search here, you can go to select keywords, And this is where you get to see their whole taxonomy of terms, and you can drill down to any extent you want. So they have this top category here. I'm gonna pick one that's, I know has a lot of depth. So if I pick health and safety, biomedical, you can see it's really subdivided into all these different areas. You can pick just those particular ones down here, and maybe based on what you saw by doing some searches with the, using just a simple text search, you may have become familiar with the ones in your area. So let's say you're into this molecular and physiological and structure function. For things you can pick save selections to continue. Yes. Yeah.
Because I'm learning about SPIN now too.
Yeah.
Is category 1 and somehow related to category 2?
I'm sorry, yeah, category 1 that I had up on the left, when you expand that, it shows you all the things.
Like the
that are part of it,
subtopics
yeah.
under that.
Exactly
Okay.
right, yeah, sorry if I skipped over that. So now that I've picked 3 different keywords here, and you can see that it defaults to an or instead of an and. So there's 41 and 4 and 4, I can click locate funding. Let me point out too that the number of opportunities up here is before you apply those preference filters. So don't be shocked when you see like there's 500, I want to go through 500, no, you'll only see maybe 350 that match your filters. So that's by design. So in this case, for that reason, even though it's adding up all the ones there, and it starts with, what would that be, 41, 49, we're down to 39 that match my filters. So that's another way to use, I showed you the text search, you can do the advanced keyword search. So let's say that if I like this one, if I think I've got a search that makes sense for me, that I've done a little work on it and it looks pretty good, I've got the save button over here in the top right. So what it's gonna save is not an opportunity, but the whole search. And I can give it any name I want, and I'm just gonna say test, delete, because believe me, I get too many of these in my system here, but you can give it a name that makes perfect sense to you. I think it's because I'm an administrator, I've got this user option, pay no attention to that. And here's where you get to say, I wanna save the search, and at the same time, it gives you the option to set up the funding alert for it. So if I say, yeah, I do want an HTML email update, and I only want that once a week. So I've had people say like, well gee, don't you just get inundated? No, you don't. And remember why. So let's say that in this case I've got 39. Let's say I had 100 that matched it, and I save the search and I get weekly updates. It's only gonna mail you new matches for that search. So if there's 100 today, then they're averaging maybe 2 a week that they're adding it, 2 times 50 weeks. So do not be afraid to cast the net kind of wide and get weekly updates, and you will not find yourself inundated. You can, and if you are, you can change the search. You can recreate it. It's not difficult. So, so what I just did was I added saved search under harmful algal bloom, which I could then rerun anytime I want. Or sorry, test delete. I added that one, so it's down at the bottom. And I added a funding alert for test delete. Let's say you're going on, it's sabbatical for you, you're not interested in looking at stuff. You can always go to the funding alerts, manage the funding alerts. I'm just gonna say continue because I don't need any more saving here. And I just want to show you, this is under your control. You can create these, they're not just gonna keep running, they'll run until you turn them off. So at any time, you can go to funding alerts, manage funding alerts. In this case, test delete, the one down at the bottom, I can say, no, I've had it with that. I just want to turn it off for a month. I'm busy working on class prep or something. So do not feel that you are starting something you can't easily stop. In the same way, you can, under saved searches, you can always just go to your list of searches. I've got a kind of a crazy mess in here. And you got a trash can to delete anything you don't like. So whack it, it's gone. You're driving the big rig here. You can do what you want with it. So the last thing I want to show you is the advanced search is kind of nice because it gives you ways to search different fields that are in the record itself. So please load the advanced search. Today, please. Okay, so there are a lot of different parts to the funding record that I showed you, right? It goes on for like a page and a half. So you've got all of these different fields that you can pick from. some of them, I think, why do you care about the contact facts? But you do have a lot of useful stuff in here. So spin ID could be useful. Sponsor is likely to be useful for some people. Sponsor type, so are you looking for private money or what? And you can add new ones. So if the full program, let's see, I had a couple examples here. So let's just start with something kind of too big, and say I'm interested in runoff from agriculture or some such. Locate funding. So it's looking through the full program, everything in there, and it should find a pretty fat number here. So yeah, 407. What you can do, this is where it's really nice to click the intersection of two big topics that might apply in your area. So if you say, well, that's a little too much, I want to go to add new, and you can now pick, let's say the synopsis as a different one down here, and I'm only interested in the synopsis is going to contain, I don't know, fertilizer, runoff, algae,
Nutrients, or nutrient loading.
Let's try that. So what it's going to do, is default to an and here, and I find anything. We made it a little too narrow there. Let me just go big again. Okay, so we went from 400 down to 446. Maybe not the most logical approach that I've taken here, but you still get the point, I think. You can add from different areas to find exactly where these two terms overlap. If I were to pick the very same one again, the default one of a full program, it will not act the way you think. So let me just give you a little quick warning here. If you find, I had water, right? Yeah. So I believe it has this twist. Yeah, it'll be treated as an or, not an and. Yeah, okay, so just a little thing to watch out for. If you had the same one, if you had a different one, it will act like an and find the overlap, the smaller number. But if you pick the very same field, full program, then it acts like an or, and it just gives you this, both of these big bubbles. So if you're finding it working opposite of what you think, it's probably that you've probably made that slip. So those are different ways that you can, cast the net pretty wide. If I go back and change it to synopsis and change it to water, it actually is a fairly, people tend to overspecify, right? So this is why I'm using these very broad terms, and I would encourage you to start off with the very broad terms. The only reason to go with the very specific stuff is to find, I just want to find something that really matches it, then learn from that what the keywords are in my area. And then you can go back and configure a more sensible search. So again, something like this, as broad as it may sound, if you're in environmental sciences and you're interested in water runoff from farms and so forth, might actually make sense. 46 is not a big number. You could save the search, get a funding alert, you will not be inundated. So, yeah.
So could you tell us what's the difference between full program and synopsis?
Yeah, let's look at a record. That's a good question. So a full program really means it's looking in all the fields everywhere, and synopsis is the very short write-up for it.
Okay, description.
Yeah, so I did an example. Sometimes looking through the full program is where you find the sort of the fringe approaches to it. I've got an example I was trying yesterday. We have a researcher in biology, Tomer Amador-Rees, and he's done a lot of groundbreaking work on male fertility. And if you type in fertility, you get a bazillion results. And if you limit it, if you say, only show me the ones where male is somewhere in the program, it does a dramatic reduction because that's not the standard approach to the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, so in this case, you can see synopsis here, it's this particular one, right? So it's probably got most terms of importance, but you've got some other areas that it will look for. All these other fields will be included for the full program. So not a dramatic difference, but a difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the second question I had, can you exclude words or keywords or fields?
Yes.
That helps to narrow it down to?
Yes. You don't have the option, well, you can do a does not contain if you're in the advanced search, looking at both places. So, yeah, that's a great question. I have no idea what's gonna happen if I try it this way. But it's probably gonna be very, very tiny. But yeah, it contains, it does not contain, yeah, if you've got a, you know, a pretty sophisticated, you know exactly, like, everybody's doing that, I don't wanna do that. Yeah, you absolutely can do that. Oh. Because it's doing an or, not an and. No, we started off with 400.
Yeah.
We started with 440, and now it's eliminated 100 of them. So yeah, that's maybe not the smartest example, but it does. And then anytime you can create several, and you can always X them out over here.
But the add new button is how you get a second, third, fourth line.
Yeah, top left, add new, right there. Is how you can add.
And based on how you filter, it will overlap those criteria, or what you said, when it's all full program, they'll all be ors.
Yeah, that's right. It'll be ands if you use different ones and or if you do the same one. Yeah. So to reiterate, you could create searches, you could save them, you could set up the funding alerts you want, and then bookmarks are out there to to keep track of individual stuff you're interested in. It's good. Play with it. Make the most out of it. It's free. Should I do the reporter thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I know that about half of you are in biomedical area of one kind or another, and I get very excited that NIH has provided a tool for you to very quickly find out who's getting funded in your area. So if you don't know this, you really want to know it. If you go to reported.nih.gov, the advanced search gives you all these options. You can find people at a particular university very quickly. But I imagine for most people, the thing is to find out what you don't know, right? To find out, I don't know who at what university is doing what I work on. So I mentioned Tomer Avidor Reese. If I type in male and infertility, just to kind of get the thing started, you might want to put some date range on here for things that were awarded after a certain time. Let's just go ahead and hit it. Because where it gets interesting is when you get a record set like this that comes back very quickly. Where it gets interesting, from my point of view, Tomer Avidor Reese shows up right in there. So if we pick his R15, guy here in the University of Toledo, the entire abstract of the award is provided right there. So you have a tremendous tool to find out exactly what the heck people are getting funded by the NIH are doing. And down below, you've got a very extensive list of terms that they've tagged it with. But where the real power of all those terms is that down here under similar projects, what it does is say, we've tagged that one that you're interested in with this, dozens of terms. And similar projects gives you the top 100 projects matching that cloud of tags, essentially. So if you know what you want to know, you can find out a whole bunch of other people doing it. And when I've shown this to people, it's really not unusual that people say, well, I didn't know that NIAIDS or NGMS or that these particular institutes also fund the work I'm interested in. So that's one way that this might prove really interesting, is to find out that you've maybe been looking over here, but you need to look some other places within the NIH to find out other things that are being funded. And of course, the other thing is, if you look at the fiscal year, these are all 2023. So very quickly, you can find out, which study groups, which program officers, which institutes within the NIH are really funding your area. And also, frankly, what you thought was a brand new direction may have just gotten funded by them last week. So, it's good news and bad news, but it's news. I mean, it's fresh, current, who's doing what, where, and getting funded by the NIH without waiting until they get it published 2 years